Hello, hello, hello. Hi, welcome. I am Sylvia Hayes, and you are watching Good News at Primetime. Tonight, our show is about knowing your rights. So, everyone should know their rights, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Know your rights. Because so many people have gone to bed crying, left a place crying because they felt that they had no rights, they had no say so, there was nothing they can do about a situation. Even with lemon laws, a lot of time people will get over on you with the lemon law with the cars. If you buy a car, one thing, if you buy a car and you roll it off the lot and it breaks down, you have a right to get your money back. But somebody say it's as is, but there is a 3-day clause there. You have 3 days to change your mind. If you drive off the parking lot and your car dies on you before you can get to your destination, you can take that car back. You have a right to take it back and get your money back. Okay, but some people don't think they have that right. They say as is mean as is, but there is 3 days. There's a buyer's remorse thing that you can use as well when you're buying stuff. You get upset and you go shopping and spend all the money. And then you say, "Oh my God, what did I do?" You can take that back. You have 3 days to take it back. Okay, so just remember that buyer's remorse law. 3 days. If somebody come there and con you into buying something and you didn't really want to buy it, take it back, cancel the contract or whatever. Sometimes they may say you can't cancel the contract. You have 3 days. Just remember that you have 3 days that you can do that. There are laws. There are all kinds of laws as far as spouses, retail, policemen. Everybody has rules and regulations they have to follow, and you have rules and rights. You may not know it, but you have rules and you have rights as well. Okay, but before we go into that, we're going to go ahead and talk about my book, Power Thoughts: Empowering You to Be Successful in Life. This book is so important to your life. I'm going to put it like that. It's empowering. It has saved so many people. It has enhanced my life, to be honest, in writing it. Just thinking of some of the things that I've put in that book, it has enlightened me and reminded me of some things. So the book is really powerful. It will help you a whole lot. It is not only is it good for young people, but it's good for the older people, business people. Everybody will benefit from this book. And if you have a youngster, that's the best gift you can give them because it has literally saved their lives, saved some people's lives. Let's put it like that. Okay, so without any further ado, we're gonna go ahead and bring on my co-host, Mr. Reggie Drummer. Hey, Reggie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. What's up there, Miss Sylvia? And what's up to the Good News audience and everybody over here at Square Mile Media Atlanta? Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. This is a powerful topic tonight. You
Oh,
know, uh,
yes, it is.
when we think about our rights, I chop them up into different categories. Uh, and one is just the right as a human being.
Exactly.
The
And you
person
have the
walk.
right to be happy.
Oh yes, yes. There's a person walking around the planet. We've got certain rights, decency towards human beings. I'll share that with us a little bit later. And I was sharing earlier, it's December the 10th is Human Rights Day. But just like some of those things that you shared, knowing your rights, the laws, what it is, different laws that are in effect, whether they're man-made laws or what they call universal or godlike laws,
Hmm.
stealing. When you said somebody's selling you a car that they know is a lemon, that's really stealing. Okay, and they clean it up with some of these modern day terminology, but basically it's stealing from your neighbor.
Hmm.
So there are some universal laws that are in effect, and we'll share some of those. And even just like proprietary and intellectual property. things that you own. Recently I had a lady on her job. She found out they own everything she talked about. They own her social media. They owned some of the uh, documents that she put together with other team members, and she thought she owned them.
Mm.
She's got to go to court. She's got to go before the law to get this straightened out.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times people don't know that when they're working for a company that they do stuff, is the company owns it.
Oh
A
yes,
lot
yes.
of times.
And then now that's think about it. Nothing should be owned by somebody else. Even slavery is a violation of a human law.
Yeah.
There's a lot of violation. And all those things are it's about 70 universal laws, that and we see they are in violation even when we look at over in the Ukraine and over in Palestine now. There are several laws that are human laws that are being violated. But we'll drop that in. I'm waiting on there for Mr. Howard to come on board. I know he's going to share some stuff with us.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And we do have another guest. We can go ahead and bring him in. Mr. Hobby Hawani. Hi, Hobby. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm pretty fair for a country square. But I know my rights,
Oh,
because I educated myself,
oh, okay.
And let me point out, in the 50, 40, 50, and 60, and even the 70, many people of color did not know their rights because the education level was below high school. And because of that lack of education about your right, people took advantage of people of color. So it's very important today to know your right. There's no excuse to educate yourself about your rights, regardless of what you're into. If you have a medical problem, understand you got medical rights that may be violated that you didn't know about because they expect you to be ignorant and legal in terms of law. The police and the court hoping that you don't know your rights because they're expecting you to be ignorant. The
Yeah.
court be the first one to say ignorant is no fault. And that's correct, unless you have not received the training, the education on what is right.
Yeah. And one of the things you just mentioned about medicine, people don't realize they have the right to accept what the doctors say or not accept it. Uh, you may be allergic to a medicine, and you tell the doctors, "I'm allergic to this. I can't take this medicine," and they're gonna force you onto it. You have the right to say, "No, I don't want this because it doesn't go well with my stomach." I have known for a person to tell them, the medical profession, that this doesn't work well, and they forced him to take it, and he had a bad reaction, almost died. So you have the right to say, "I don't want to take this medicine," even when you're in the hospital. If they're giving you medicine and you don't want it, you don't have to take it. And a lot of people think that the doctors are the boss. You are the boss. Okay, you hire them, they don't hire you. So you're supposed to be in control. They guide you, they tell you what's right, and what you need and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, the decision is yours whether you want to accept what they tell you or not. Now, if you feel like they're telling you the right thing and you want to follow every guideline step by step, that's up to you. But you have that choice. They can't make you do anything. If you want to lay there and suffer and die, that's your choice. They can't make you take treatment to keep from dying. They can't do that. But they don't realize they have those choices.
Well,
Well,
let me just say one experience I had a week ago. I was in the emergency room. I had a problem with my liver. and I had two professional people come into the my room, and they were telling me what they want to do to me. And I listened to them and I questioned them. And they want to argue with me, saying, well, you don't know what is good for you. And I told him, one of the doctors, I told him, well, you fired. I'm not your patient, you my doctor. And if you can understand where I'm coming from, my legal right, I don't need you to put your hand on my liver. And I fired him. And a day later, he came back and apologized because I'm no dummy. You know, I'm the type of person I will argue with everybody. Sometimes my wife, especially when I get pulled over by the police, told me, be quiet. You're going to end up going to jail because you like to argue with people. Well, I like to question people. And I just don't take face value on a certain rules and or any rules that they lay down to me. In the earlier years of my life, I in the 60s, late 60s, the political party, the Black Panther Party, had a particular workshop to teach people about their rights. When you get arrested, what to do. So many of us today, we do not even know what to do when we get arrested or even stop. And you have to know your rights. And sometimes the police want to abuse that right. So, like in medical, you got to know your right. Housing, you got to know your right. Everything that dealing with your life, you got to know your right. So, I'm ready to move on to the next topic of this conversation because I don't want to dominate this conversation.
Yeah. Well, you brought up something. One of the things, and most of us are familiar, I think that's the Miranda law. You have the right to remain silent. A lot of our young people, when we would go down to work with young people to expunge their records and look into some of their cases that their civil rights and personal rights have been violated because they did not know they had the right to remain silent. They didn't know they had the right to have counsel, which is a lawyer. They did not know that whatever they said would be held against them in what they call a court of law. Now, by not knowing your rights, you can put yourself in a compromised position. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's what they say. You know, you got rights, but a lot of those rights are backed by law. But there are human laws that every human being is privy to. I think we say in the Constitution what they say, the pursuit of happiness and, you know, the Bill of Rights. But around the world, as a human being that's walking around on this planet, we have certain rights, the way we treat each other, even in war, in acts of war. There's certain treatment that must be done because you're a human being. So these are some rights that every human being has. Even during slavery, one of the reasons that, even though it was covered up, but if you ever remember Amistad, there was a group of Africans that were able to sue for their freedom. And you say, well, why weren't the other slaves able to sue for their freedom and get it? Because it was a law, but a lot of people did not know. A lot of people never know their rights. Never, ever. They go to the grave. Like you say, in the hospital, you see a lot of people, especially Black people. The doctor says, you know, we're going to have to cut your foot off. This is it. Well, they don't really have to cut your foot off. You're in a diabetic situation. You can fight to save your foot, that limb. But a lot of times, just because the doctor said it, or it could be some medication that could cause you an adverse reaction, and they say, well, this is what everybody else is taking. This is all you covered under. Well, you don't have to take that, but you got to know your rights. You got to know where you stand, and you got to be willing to fight for your rights.
And there's too often so many people give up, especially those who are locked up for petty crime. They sit in prison for a year and haven't been to the first trial. I know one time I was charged with a conspiracy charge to overthrow the government back in 1970. And they had all the evidence they said they had against me, and they willing for me to take a plea from a 20-year to a 10-year. So I told them I'm not taking a plea. So they locked me up with $800,000 bond because they knew I didn't have the money to get out of jail. And they locked me up for 6 months. After
Wow.
6 months, they finally admit they had the wrong guy. Now, what if I would have took a plea and spent 10 years? Few of my friends went to Vietnam because they took a plea, and because the plea will either go to Vietnam or go serve time. And for myself, I'd rather go trial. I didn't want to go to Vietnam, and I never saw those 4 people went to Vietnam again. So there are so many people are lost in the prison system because they got tired of waiting and allowed the judge and the prosecution to give them a plea, and they figure it's the easier way to get out of a situation. But now your rights are violated, and they don't realize their rights are violated until they come out of jail and find they can't get a job, and they can't get an apartment, they can't get a job, a good job that pays you. So when you lose your right and not known about it, you lose it forever. Now, people who for voting rights, this is happening right today because some states are taking away voting rights for the minority. In Georgia, they redistrict the county, so this way the blacks have less rights to vote for who they want to do. And this is happening all across the country. Now, there is a bill, right? But the courts are continuing to chip away that rights. Same thing with abortion rights. You know, a woman had the right to know what's wrong with her body, how to handle her body. And each year they chipping away that woman's rights. So no matter how you turn and look, unless you put blinders on your eye, these things going to happen to you. There many homeowners are losing their homes because they signed a piece of paper and lose their mortgage. There's several cases in court now. They're trying to get their homes back. They lived there for 40 years. And the courts are saying because they signed a piece of paper, but they did not know their rights. So rights are very important. You know, even religious rights. You know, we got to understand our rights in terms of practice our religion. And some people look at those rights and deny those rights to certain religion. People that wear dreadlocks. They don't want you to go to school with those dreadlocks. They're taking away your rights of your religion. Islamic, they take away your rights. They say you could put a Christian prayer in school, but you could put an Arabic prayer in school because they know you ain't going to fight for it. So there's a lot of rights that are being washed down the sewer, and we don't even know about it. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you if you keep your blinder on your eye. It's going to catch up to you. You're going to say, how did that happen? Well, you didn't pay attention. You know, YouTube is a very good tool when you're looking for your rights. The internet is a very good tool to look for your rights. And it's on your phone. You know, you have a camera. People know how to use that camera. But they do not know how to use the internet to look at your rights. You know, there's rights there that's dictated. You know, Reggie talking about the Bill of Rights. There are so many. That Bill of Rights is very important to every American. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, all the way down to 14, 16 Amendment. Each one dealt with rights. fellow went to the airport, and the cop pulled him over. He was on the way to buy a truck in Chicago. And the police pulled him over and said, "What was in your bag?" He had no right to ask him what was in his bag, but they found $40,000 in his bag to buy a truck. And the police said, "Well, that is drug money," and took away that money. And it took him almost 2 years to get that money back.
Wow.
If it was me, I would say, arrest me. I so what I missed the flight. Arrest me, but at least I have documentation on the arrest and what's in evidence. So we got to know our rights, even clean water. We are entitled to clean water.
Right.
We're entitled to fresh air. We are entitled to walk across the street and not get run over by a car. We are entitled to so many things that we don't pay attention to. We are entitled to save money. A lot of banks take away our money or give us less interest, or give you a higher loan interest rate on your loan. We don't look at it. Well, I'll go ahead and pay 29.9 on the loan. That's 30 cents on the dollar. Meanwhile, another bank in the different community is charging 12%. Same thing when we talk about car. You had the right to get a fair loan for your car.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, especially some of the used lots, they charge you outrageous, right? Because they say you need a car. Come to us and we'll give you a car, and you drive off the lot. And then when you look at it, you paying $10 for every $20 you pay. And you have the right to say, wait a minute, let's renegotiate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even with the car loans, you don't have to. A lot of time, the dealerships want to give you the loan themselves, but you can get your loan from somewhere else, and then come to the dealership to buy the car, and save yourself a whole lot of money. A lot of time, people are pre-qualified. They go to the credit union or go to their own personal bank to get the money, and then go to the dealership. That way you save a lot of money that way. So you don't have to take their loan. But
Right.
some people don't know that though.
Well, one of the things, and this is critical, especially now, education. We have to educate ourselves. Like Javi said, we got to really pay attention. We have to really pay attention. There's more, like even buying a car. You don't have to pay what's on the sticker. Look how many years people paid what was on the sticker and more. All because they thought that was part of the process. The haggling, the up and down, the prices, the interest rates, all that type of stuff. Now we become better informed people. But I'm looking at so many different rights. Freedom from discrimination, whether it's age, sex, gender. We're learning more about that now. I've had people that were discriminated on their job just because they had turned older, or discriminated on their job because they were young. As people say, well, there's no way you can advance in the company because you're too young or you're a woman. Discrimination. When it comes down to the right for a public hearing, what we said earlier, a lot of times when people get locked up, especially Black people, you say, well, why are Black people getting locked up disproportionately compared to other people? Not knowing their rights, not knowing your rights, not knowing when the police officer stops you, you should, you got the right to remain silent. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say nothing. Like you said, sometimes if they arrest you, at least it's some form of documentation. Now, a lot of our young Black males hadn't been able to even be arrested, being shot on the spot, killed on the spot, or whatever. But you got to know that you got a chance in a court of law. There's provisions, laws set aside to be tried in a court of law, and you consider innocent until proven guilty. You consider innocent until proven guilty. You have the right for peaceful assembly. Peaceful assembly. Back during the COVID, when the Black Lives Matter and different groups were assimilating, people got arrested for coming together. Okay? That was a direct violation of the law. When you look at freedom of speech, even though they said freedom of speech is backed by the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, because if you say something, you better be ready to back it up. But all these things are rights that we have. You have a right to own something, to own a car. You don't have the right to own another human being, but you can own a car. You can own property, okay? And you have the right to protect your home, your car, your property. Even here in Georgia, in many states, you can sell a car just like a dealership with a bill of sale. You can sell a lot of things with a bill of sale. That's a document that's binding in a court of law. Matter of fact, you can have a bill of sale and proof of insurance and don't even have to have a tag, as long as you got the bill of sale in the car. But if you don't know these things, you can put yourself in a compromised position and have yourself paying more. Either you're going to pay more money or you're going to pay with your time served in jail or whatever.
Yeah. So let's talk about this owning people. A lot of time when people get married, they think they own the other person. I can hit her. That's my wife. I can do what I want to do with her. And that's where a lot of domestic abuse pop up at. But you don't own that person. That is your partner, not your slave, not your property. And you have the right to be free from all that abuse. But a lot of people don't think so. Even, I've seen times when a woman will be abused by her husband and she goes home to her parents and the parents tell them to go back to your husband. Because that's your husband. You got to go back. It's going to be all right. But no way. I would never tell my child to go back to an abusive husband. Never, ever. But people think that, especially the old school, they think they own you and they can do whatever they want. No, you have a right to live free from abuse. You have the right to be happy and at peace. But a lot of people don't know that. They think they have to put up with that kind of stuff. A lot of times they've been brainwashed that way because some of it is old school. Then you got some of the new school people says, I'm not putting up with it. But you do have that right. And grandparents, you got
when we talk about marriage, there's a lot of rights that in marriage we don't know about. For example, a woman take your child and go to another state. She can't do that. You have a right to keep your child in the same state. Grandparents, which is a new thing, didn't start happening about 10 years ago. Grandparents didn't have no rights. But then when people are dying for COVID, people getting hooked on drugs, the state say, well, I'd rather for that child to go live with the grandparents. And that created a new law for grandparents. Before, the grandparents didn't have much to say about the child. So there are continuous adoption of the law. It keep on changing. Every year they keep on changing. It's grandparent law. There's step-parents law. A lot of step-parent, a child abuse the parent because you ain't my daddy. You ain't my mama. And they said, well, I can't do nothing about it. But there are some laws that will protect you. They can't come in and remove your child. A lot of time, especially among black children and children of color, they will go in the house and remove them and take them to foster care or DFAC without no paper. And then you go to the courthouse and say, well, you took my child. And they don't tell you, well, you have the right to appeal that decision because somebody said something, well, you abused your child. One woman went to jail for 20 years because they thought that she killed her child. And she will explain to the court when she first arrested the child had something wrong with the body of that child. It took 20 years for them to find out, yes, that child did not die at the hands of the mother, but died of natural causes. So
Right.
that but her rights were violated from the get-go, you
Mm.
know? So, when we talk about children, so many children get suspended from school. There's an outnumber 60,000 every year. Black and Latino children are suspended from school. And they come home and said, I got suspended in school. And they said, how many days? 5 days, 7 days. A lot of parents don't go to the school, find out what is that suspension for.
Right.
Why
Right.
my child suspended? You have the right to go to that school and say, why is my child suspended? And there's a behavioral problem, you have the right to get help from that school. The Board of Education give money to school districts to deal with behavioral problems. A
Right.
lot of our children do have behavioral problems because you got a single parents or you got parents that's on drugs.
Right.
You know,
Well,
so
you
yeah, go
you
ahead, Reggie.
know,
You there?
in school, there's a Bill of Rights between the parent, the educators, and the students. A lot of schools have initiated things like that. But again, if one party is missing or not knowing what's in it, then they can't follow up when kids are being uh, given 5 days in the streets, and that's going to put your kid in a what they call a truancy type school, because once they out for 2 weeks, they can't come back in the regular school. They're gonna be in one of those special schools, and then that means that uh, also threatening your job if you're a single parent. So the Bill of Rights between the student, the parent, and the educators, that's an important thing. And sometimes we don't get into it. We don't see it. There's an agreement and there's a right that your child has when they go into the school system. They have a right to a good education. They have a
Mhm.
right to public safety. One of the things
Yep.
that's happening now because of that
They,
Bill of
they do
Rights,
have a right.
right? And one of the things, even when a student goes to school, the school system has to protect the kid from school shootings, bullying, all of those things. That's an agreement. So the more we look at, and that's all rights and laws are agreements within a society that says, you know what, we looked at these things, and well, you got the fundamental rights as a human being, okay? Now there had been some amendments, like you said, with the grandparents, with women. Uh, the brother was saying in the chat, back in the day, a man could whoop his wife. And this went
Mhm.
on during slavery and during the 60s. You know, if a woman uh, didn't follow the rules of her husband, she didn't have, even though she's a human being, she couldn't even go get a car loan. She couldn't even get a house loan. Where today, we see more women able to what? Get those types of things because uh, the law protects your rights. The reason you have laws is to protect your rights. As Black people in America, the reason we had to get stuff written into law was to protect our rights. People knew it was not rightful or godly to have people enslaved. But until you had a law that abolished slavery, guess what? They just kept doing it.
Well,
Mhm.
one tool they've been using lately for the last 5 years called suing. Sometimes they don't respect you and they don't respect your children, but you sue the school board for a couple of $1,000. You sue the city because you're right being abused by the police. They start to listen. They
Okay.
may not think they listen, but they say, BS walk and money talk, and sometimes that's the way you got to go. Some people say, well, I don't know how to sue. Well, look it up. You may maybe sue. A lot of people say, well, like especially among some folks, white folks, I don't want to say that, but when a black person is murdered by the police, they say, well, he meant to get murdered because his parents wanted to sue the city. No, why would your parents let your child get killed by the police because you want to sue the city? No,
They
you
don't make
sue the city
sense.
because they took your life. And sometimes they don't speak about George Floyd. That's it. It really listening to what happened to George Floyd because they lost a lot of money. A lot of the police brutality, they lose a lot of money. Memphis was Memphis about the water. Remember the bad water? They didn't want to do nothing
Right.
about the water. Everybody drinking out bottled water. Even the governor wouldn't drink the water.
Oh,
But
up
they
in
wouldn't
Flint.
do nothing about it until they sued.
Yeah. Well,
Now they sue. They fix the water. They fix the pipes.
it's two ways, and all of them involve getting money out of these people's pockets. I remember a couple of years ago, one of the things we put out, I think we were doing Dads on Duty. We said every black child, especially black male children, you should put, time they hit 8, 9 years old, put $1 million worth of life insurance on them. I don't care if the family got to come together, do without drinking, smoking, eating honey buns, put about $10-15 million on these black babies. And then when they start getting shot, killed, or on drugs, guess what? The insurance companies will do just like they do in other population groups. They'll come up with rehab programs instead of sending people to jail like they did during the crack epidemic. Say, they was on crack, they was on drugs, they'll send them to rehab. Because these insurance companies, once they find, they'll start suing the drug manufacturers, they'll start suing the cities, the municipalities, to make sure that they don't kill black boys. And that was one of the things that we put out. It was a black bill of rights between, and it involved black people putting at least $1 million, 10 million if you could, on black boys from the time they reach 10 years old.
That probably would stop a few people.
You cut all that killing out. Trust me.
Yeah, it would. But one of the things I wanted to say about grandparents, at one time grandparents had no rules, no say so, no rights to the grandchildren at all. But now they do have that right. But there is a little catch there. If both parents are together, they're married and together, they still will wipe out the grandparents. So if they're single, if the parents are single and the grandparents want to see the child, then they have that right. They can do that. But if both parents are together, then grandparents don't necessarily have that right. I know that don't make any sense.
Well,
but it does. Because I was reading it, I'm going, why do the parents have to be single? Because it's like if one of the parents die, then the other parents say, I'm not going to let you go stay with your grandmother. You can't stay with your grandmother. But they taking that grandmother's rights away. So they put it in there so grandparents can't see their children, especially if the child been hanging around the grandparents, and it can cause problems too. So another thing they were saying in the courts, that if this causes a problem with the child, then they can see their grandchild. The courts will let them see it because child could be devastated by not being able to see their grandparents, especially if they've been close knit, and now all of a sudden one of the parents want to take them away. So they put that law in there. You gotta let your child see that grandparent.
Well, again, and like I said, you got human rights, and because of the viciousness in this country, you think about it, as black people, our grandparents have been in the family structure. That's part of our culture. It's been in the family structure for a long time. Even in the military, when I was in the military, a lot of white guys didn't take off if their grandmama died. It was a known fact that a lot of brothers and sisters in the military was either raised by their grandmamas, their aunties, or somebody like that. So they had to write legislation in, which is laws, to offset. But they said, well, y'all, you know, they would say derogatory things like, how many mamas and big mamas you got? Because the average, you know, young guy, that if he came from a single family, he had his mother, he had her sisters, who were his aunties, he had her brothers, who were his uncles, and he had a grandparents, and probably somebody that might not have even been a grandparent, but she was a big mama to the neighborhood. Well, that was hard for the military to make a decision on. So they had to make some rules in there that said, you know, made some adaptations based on that one factor of Black culture. So you have a right to maintain a certain culture, okay, within this system as a human being. When we think about this, us as humans, we got the right to go anywhere we want to go. Now, there are restrictions based on what? If you're not wanted by the law, you should be able to go from any state, you know, based on, you can walk around, you can call them bums, hobos, whatever you want to call them. They run around all the 50 states, because as long as they don't have a violation of the law, guess what? They are free to go from state to state. If you don't have a violation of the law in the United States, you are free to go to another country. Okay? And if you are in another country, that's a rule, that's a law, that's a human right that you have the right, you know, now other things are factors, money, things of that nature, but you can denounce your citizen. You got the right to denounce your citizenship here in America and go to another country if they'll take you.
Yeah.
I just want to say that if you go to another country, you better know the law in that country.
Oh, you better know the law.
Oh, yeah, because see, a lot of Americans, they go to the country and think they entitled. Some of the country, American are not entitled. You know, and if you don't know the law, there was a Black woman went to the bar, and she yelled at the security guard at the airport. She didn't know it was against the law to yell. And she did a 1 year in jail because she disrespected the security guard because it was a man. So a lot of us go to some of these countries thinking that we're entitled. Just like some community that we go to, some places in the South, you think you have freedom. You were mentioned, Reggie, about homeless people or bums or travel from one state to another state. But that would happen during the 50s and 60s. So some city, they created a law called loitering. If you walked around and you didn't have no money, you're in violation of the law because they classify that as loitering. And then you go to jail for 6 months. That's how they got a lot of workers in Mississippi and Alabama working on this road. So in some of those cities in America, you got to watch out for the law because it ain't the same type of law, you know? And depending on how backward those cities are. So a lot of these cities, especially in some of the countries or in the mountains, they really, you know, really violate people's rights. So by knowing where you're going, you know, that's one of the reasons why they had the Green Book. The Green Book is a book that tells people, Black people, people of color, where to stay in different state when you travel, because some hotel won't let you stay there. You know, so we have to know the right even today, because every day somebody go challenge your rights.
Yeah.
Well,
Another thing, about slum landlords. A lot of people don't know that they have rights as far as being a tenant in an apartment. For instance, if what the heat break down. And you ask the landlord to fix it, they don't fix it. You send them a note asking them to repair, and they still don't. And you up in the apartment freezing. You can take your rent money and have that apartment repaired, have that heat repaired, and then just give them the bill. No, they don't know that. A lot of people don't know that they sit up there and freeze. They be crying. The windows broken or something like that, and they're miserable in their apartment, but they can't leave because they don't have money to leave. But they don't know that they have the right to get things repaired in a timely manner. So if you have something wrong, if you write them a letter and tell them this needs to repair, they should have a certain many days to do that. If they don't, then take your money and
Yeah.
repair it yourself.
I wanted to,
You can't do that.
I wanted to break this down because I had some questions in the chat. Now, there's three things. You got rights, you got laws, and you got privileges. Okay? A right
Okay.
is something as a human being, bar none, just as a human being, you got the right to. Believe it or not, to have a driver's license is not a right. It's a privilege.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a privilege. There are certain things, once we understand what they mean, for instance, law. Now, anytime you violate somebody's rights, there's a law that you can use to, to attack that particular violation. Okay? When you talk about deeds or contracts, those are things that are written down on paper. But rights are universal laws like killing. Okay? You know,
Mm-hmm.
you kill somebody, we know killing somebody is wrong, okay?
Yeah.
To enslave somebody is wrong. However, if you have a law that oversees the human rights, see, it was laws. Jim Crow was a law, okay? That was
Yeah.
a law. See, when you look at these are things that are on the books. To be able to whoop your wife, that's not a right. That was a law. To be able to whip a slave, own a slave, that's not a right of a white American. That was a law, okay? And it was considered a privilege to own a slave. That's not a right for them to own a slave. You know, it's not righteous. They can't sustain it in any of the holy books. But when we talk about rights, these are things that are specifically for you as a human being. As a woman, you got rights. As a man, I've got rights. That's whether I'm white, black, gay, straight, or whatever. Okay? Now, when they have to put a law in, that law can have an amendment that can be prejudiced. And that's what we had happen in America for so long. You even look at some of the conditions that's going on in Ukraine, over in Israel right now. They are human rights violations, but they are laws that are in place that mask those rights, and they consider it a privilege for people to have something as simple as medical attention.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question here. Um, when you say a man owning his wife, that was a law. I could see him saying this is mine, but just to say own it and you can do what you want to do with her, that was in the book
That
somewhere.
was a law. That was a law. Yes, that's not a
Oh,
right for the man to do that. That was a law that was written by other men to do that. Okay? That's why we have to make a distinction between a law, a right is something we all got. If the creator showed up, whatever gives us all the right to live. Okay?
yeah,
Can I?
Laws are the things that they do and put in place to control your rights. Laws are designed to control your rights. Okay? And then, like I said, a driver's license. A lot of people think it's a right to have a driver's license. No,
yeah, it's a
it's not.
privilege.
It's a privilege. That's why they can take them from you.
let
A
me just point
passport
out.
is a privilege. A
Let me
passport is a privilege. That's why you got 80% of the people, somewhere around 70% of the black population don't have a passport. It's a privilege.
let me point out something before we go up the air. Walmart. Every community has a Walmart. And when you walk out of that store, they want to see your receipt. In some cases, they want to see inside your bag. Target, Sam Club. When they want to look in your bag, they violate your rights. They have no legal right to look in your bag unless they accuse you of shoplifting. But every day you see when people walking out of Walmart, they show them receipt. In some cases, let me see what's in your bag to prove that you ain't shoplifting. And a lot of people show their bag inside the bag, but they don't know their rights are being violated. That's modern day violation in terms of economic.
Well, that's a policy that's being enforced by a company or a manager. That's why a lot of companies say in the case of Walmart, it's not Walmart's practice to search your bag. However, a manager that's on duty can violate the procedures and protocol of Walmart. If they get a lot of stealing in Walmart, I've seen it happen, especially on the South Side. They got stuff different. If you go to a Walmart in Alpharetta, it's different than a Walmart down on Old National on Cleveland Avenue. Because the managers in their world, they think they got to do something over the top to stop stealing. Now you got all these devices and things like that, and I know people cutting them off the thing. They cutting them the price tags and all these little things that explode and all these things. But that is a violation of your rights. But a company has a policy. That's why when you start talking about rights, you got laws, you got privileges, and you got policies. Okay? Laws and policies are the things that govern or minimize your rights as a human being. They can put a policy in place. For instance, Jim Crow wasn't a law. It was a policy. Whipping your wife wasn't, in some states, it was not a law. In Tennessee, it was. It just came off the books. But it was part of the policy. Okay? In the many, whether it be Baptists, Methodists, a lot of those churches, it was protocol, a part of policy. Once they gave you a ring, the pastor gave you a belt for your wife.
Mm-mm. Nah, good thing I wasn't married back then. Yeah, 'cause I don't think I could take that one. Yeah, but I know women, even to this day, some of the older women are still struggling with their husbands
Oh,
because
yeah, definitely.
he thinks he controls them. He's in charge. So,
Let's
it's still going on.
not put all the blame on the husband, because some wife abuse the husband. It's
Yeah,
a two-way street.
yeah. There
Yes,
are
it's
some men,
two-way
some
street.
women. There are
Some
some women
women
who
do
abuse their
abuse
husbands
the
as
husband.
well.
I'm speaking about all the husbands out there that get abused by their wife, either through their credit card or the way they carry themselves. So the rights go but so far.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Uh-huh.
again, as human beings, even in agreement in a marriage between whoever those parties are, okay? If you treat each other as human beings, when you look at the human rights, the human Bill of Rights, as a human being, we got certain rights, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at, you don't have to look at ownership. If you value yourself as a human being, you don't see yourself owning another human being, then even in marriage, you're not going to be an owner. Or even if you are a boss at a job, you're not going to be an owner of another human being. Even if another human being owes you some money, you don't see yourself in a position to do what? to own them. But because of policy, procedures, and things of that nature, we've adapted certain things. A lot of things were, a lot of the laws and the policies and procedures were put in favor of the white European male. And we got to understand that all rights are all across the globe, they the same. Okay? But anytime there's a violation of your rights, you can find a law, you can find a policy or procedure. Down in Johannesburg, South Africa, there's policies and procedures that made it illegal for what? Black folk to own something. Same thing in Palestine now. In the South, it was illegal for black folk to own something, ownership. Okay? These were violations. That's why when they say violation of your civil rights, these are the rights you have as a human being. When Malcolm was going to take the United States before the World Court for violation of black folk, back in the 60s, they didn't want to hear that. Okay, because you would be brought up on war crimes. And war crimes are those crimes that you do towards a civilian or human population that is disproportionate. And trust me, with 1900s, with all the hangings and the lynchings that took place from 1900 all the way to 1909, 1920s, the United States was in violation. A lot of the civil rights, when you look at J. Edgar Hoover and all them doing what they did, many of the black people, Black Panthers, civil rights leaders being assassinated, those were direct violations of what? Human rights. And it was never a law that said you had to kill these leaders. It was a policy.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And redlining is a violation too. A lot of people don't realize that my rights been violated. I've been redlined, preventing you from getting the stuff that you want.
And redlining wasn't a law. It was a procedure that was put in place to pigeonhole and control the actions and efforts of black folk in cities.
Mm-hmm.
Just like redistricting. Now, redistricting in many states have become part of a law to redraw the lines, but that's why we have to really pay attention. And Ronald Reagan said this: freedom ain't free. You got to fight for your rights every day, okay? And if you take your rights for granted, then it is what it is.
Yeah. And a lot of people do take their rights for granted. They don't understand the people have fought for these rights and died for them. And a lot of things they take for granted. And a lot of things they don't know. A lot of rights they don't know, like living rights. You have a right to live free from fear and all of that. They don't know that. Some people live in fear constantly. So it is time for us to be moving on. You want to have your last say, Hobby, before we go?
I just want to say that every day is a new day. And we have to look at that new day. There's always a new generation. Because the old generation, they may have forgot something, but the new generation going to pick up what we say today. The new generation is tomorrow, the future. And you will find that a lot of the young people are learning their rights online. And they no longer, they question everything that's happening to them. So my prayer is going out to those folks that want to learn and be educated. It's there for you. If you neglect to get that education, you can't blame nobody but yourself. Because you want to be stupid, which I don't like stupid people, but we got a lot of stupid people out there. Don't be stupid. Be smart. So that's what I have to say. Take my word. Be smart.
Last minute, Reggie.
You got a right to be stupid and a privilege to be stupid as well. But I encourage everybody to like, share, and subscribe over here, Square Mile Media Atlanta, and have this conversation with your family. Knowing your rights, knowing some of these laws that are being put in place to ease away your human rights, And remember, December the 10th is Human Rights Day. And remember privileges. You know, all your privileges can be removed once you get a felony. All your privilege, the privilege is a privilege to vote. Okay? It's a privilege to have a driver's license. All these things can be removed just because you have a felony. That's why we work so hard with black men to remove or expunge their records. Because a lot of times not knowing their rights up front, not having an attorney present, and putting yourself in a compromised position because your family didn't have the money, the means, or the methods to take care of you, you were faced with doing time. And you took a plea.
All right. Yeah, and I would never take a plea. I would go to
Plea
trial
case?
if I could. You
Oh,
know? No, if I didn't do it, if I didn't
You
do
can
it,
never
it's
say
wrong.
never. Don't say never. Because
Well,
if you're put in a situation, you have to make the decision on yourself. So don't never say never. Just
That's
hope you
true.
never put in that position. You
yeah,
do 2 years waiting for a trial, 3 years waiting for a trial, you become weak. And when you become weak, that's when you be taken advantage of. So don't say never. You know, you can never say never because we never know when we're going to be in that position.
it's true. Well, I hope that I don't have to get in a position like that. Yeah. Just hope I don't. So hopefully we've taught you something on your rights, made you aware, make you more conscious of your rights. So like I said, even with apartment complex, if something is going wrong, you have the right to live in a decent place. You have a right to live in a pest-free apartment with everything's going right. You have the right to have lights, heat, gas. You have that right. And if they don't repair the things that need repaired, you have the right to take that rent money and go get it repaired. Give them the bill along with the balance of your rent. If you've asked them several times, you put it in paper and they still don't do it, you have that right to live in a free place. Not in a free place, but free from stress. So get the place repaired so you can live in comfort. Because sometimes stuff like that can make you sick. Because I know a woman who had a leak in her apartment. Her child got sick, from that leak, because in that roof, it started to have fungus in there. And her child got sick, was put in the hospital. And you shouldn't have to go through something like that. You shouldn't have to go through anything like that. Get things repaired if they don't do it yourself, because this could be your life that's in danger. Okay? Lemon law, somebody selling you a bad car, that's wrong. And you can report that to the, I think I wrote that down somewhere. Let me see. I did write that down. I don't see it right now. Okay, but the Better Business Bureau, you can report it to there. Okay, and what is the better practice or something like that? Anyway, it can be reported and they can be charged. Okay, so don't let people get over on you. Until next week, the holidays are coming up. Be nice to the elders, okay? Because this is the time for them. Make sure they're right. Have warm shoes and socks on their feet. Their house is warm and everything is going right for them, because it's wintertime and we don't want them freezing up. Okay, we want them to have good food and all that other good stuff. Okay, take care of everybody. Until next week, y'all have a good one.